I used to think my love could purify his darkness. It took me 2 years to understand a simpler truth. Some beasts aren't meant to be tamed. They're meant to be put down. They told me I was addicted to the pain, but they were wrong. I was addicted to the potential. And the night I realized I could never fix him was the same night I decided to break him instead. Let me tell you about the poison first, so you understand the addiction. His name was Liam, and his touch was like a drug. I still remember the first time his fingers, strong from years of drafting and building, traced the line of my jaw. A shiver went straight to my core. He had this way of looking at me, like he could see every secret, dirty thought I'd ever had. Our first time wasn't in a bed. It was against the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse, the city lights sprawling beneath us like a bed of fallen stars. His body was a wall of heat against my back, his mouth on my neck, his voice a low growl in my ear. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he whispered, and his hands were everywhere, claiming me. "And you're mine. And God, I wanted to be." I came apart in his arms, my cry muffled against the cold glass, completely his. That was the high, the hit, the potential. The crash always came later. Maybe it was a week later, at a dinner party with his clients. I told a story, a funny one I thought, about us getting lost on a hike. His smile was frozen. Later, in the car, the silence was suffocating. "You embarrassed me in there," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Liam, I was just making me look like a fool. You think it's cute to portray me as some idiot who can't read a map." He didn't speak to me for 2 days. The withdrawal was agony. I was nauseous, anxious, checking my phone every 5 seconds. I was a junkie waiting for her dealer to text back. When he finally did, it was a single word: "Come over." The reconciliation was its own kind of high, more potent than the first. He'd pull me into his arms, his kisses tasting of apology and whiskey. His hands would roam my body with a desperate hunger, as if he was trying to memorize me. "I'm sorry, baby," he'd murmur against my skin, his lips trailing down my stomach. "I just love you so much it makes me crazy. I can't stand the thought of anyone laughing at you, at us." And I'd believe him. I'd arch into his touch, my body singing for him, my mind silencing all doubt. This was the real him. This was the man I was addicted to. The cycle continued. The criticisms got sharper. "Is that what you're wearing?" The control got tighter. "I don't like you going out without me." The punishments got colder. A week of silence, missing my best friend's wedding. And my body, my traitorous body, still craved him. After a fight, the sex was different. Raw, angry. He'd pin my wrists above my head, his eyes dark, challenging me to fight back. And I wouldn't. I'd just take it, feeling a twisted sense of power in my own submission, mistaking his possession for passion. The night everything changed started like so many others. We were at a gallery opening. I was talking to a male colleague from work, laughing at a joke. I felt Liam's presence before I saw him. His hand clamped on my elbow, tight enough to bruise. "Having fun?" he asked, his voice a silk-covered blade. "At home," he exploded. "You were flirting with him, right in front of me." "I wasn't. He's just a friend." His hand connected with my face. A sharp, stinging slap. "Don't you ever disrespect me like that again." I stood there, the taste of blood in my mouth from where my teeth had cut the inside of my cheek. And I felt nothing. No fear, no hurt, just a vast, empty calm. He stormed out, slamming the door. The sound echoed in the silence. I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The red mark on my cheek was already blooming. I touched it. No tears came. Then I saw it. Sticking out of the pocket of the jacket he'd tossed on a chair. His second phone. The one he thought I didn't know about. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I picked it up. It was unlocked. And I saw them. The messages. Not to one woman, to several. The photos. The vile, degrading things he said about me to them. "The pathetic bitch I live with. She'll believe anything. I own her." The addiction didn't break. It mutated. The potential I saw was no longer for him to become a good man. It was the potential for me to become something else entirely. I put the phone back exactly as I found it. I went to the bedroom, put on the black lace lingerie he loved. I sprayed his cologne on my wrists. I waited. When he came back, smelling of bourbon and arrogance, he saw me. A flicker of surprise, then smug victory in his eyes. He thought I was begging for forgiveness. He walked over, grabbed my hair, and pulled my head back. "You learn your lesson, baby." I looked up at him, my eyes wide, playing my part. "Yes, Liam." A cruel smile touched his lips. "Good girl." He pushed me onto the bed, his hands rough, his mouth on mine. It was all teeth and domination. And as he moved on top of me, as he lost himself in what he thought was his victory, I stared at the ceiling. My mind was perfectly crystal clear. I was no longer the victim. I was the architect. I wrapped my legs around him, pulling him deeper. A moan on my lips that was as fake as his love. I whispered the words he wanted to hear. "I'm yours." And in the dark, I smiled. The hunt was on for weeks. I played my part perfectly. I was the devoted, chastened girlfriend. I cooked his favorite meals. I wore the clothes he liked. I was always available, my body a willing offering to his ego. The sex became a performance, a theater where I was the lead actress, moaning his name while my mind plotted his ruin. He grew more confident, more careless. The second phone was always left around. He'd take calls in the other room, thinking I was too naive to understand. I heard names: Chloe, Sophia, Anya. I started noting them down, along with dates and times, in a hidden digital diary, encrypted and safe. My addiction had a new focus, the secret power I held. Every smirk he gave me, every condescending pat on the head, only fueled my resolve. He thought he was the puppeteer, but I was the one gently pulling the strings, lulling him into a false sense of security. The first phase of my plan was information. I needed more than texts. I needed undeniable proof. I bought a tiny, voice-activated recorder. I slipped it into the pocket of the armchair in his study, the place where he always took his private calls. The next day, I listened. I heard him talking to Chloe, describing in graphic detail what he wanted to do to her, while I was in the very next room. My stomach turned, but my hand was steady. This was evidence. This was power. Next, I needed financial leverage. Liam was wealthy, arrogant about his money. He'd often brag about cash deals, off-the-books payments to avoid taxes. I started paying attention. I'd innocently bring him a drink while he was working, my eyes scanning the invoices on his screen. I memorized company names, amounts. I found a hidden ledger in a locked drawer, a drawer whose key he kept on his keychain. One night, after he'd passed out drunk, I took the key, went to a hardware store, and had a copy made. The next day, I photographed every page of that ledger. I was building a weapon, piece by piece, and the most potent piece was yet to come. I needed to understand his other life. I needed to see these women. Using a fake profile, I found Sophia on social media. She was young, a budding artist, her eyes filled with the same naive hope I once had. My heart ached for her. She wasn't the enemy, she was another victim. I looked at her posts, saw the expensive gifts Liam had bought her, the same jewelry he'd told me was a family heirloom. I took screenshots. Everything. The tension in our apartment was a living thing. He was happier, more relaxed than ever, believing he had me completely under his thumb. I'd lie beside him at night, his arm thrown possessively over me, and I'd imagine the look on his face when it all came crashing down. That fantasy was my new high. It was better than his touch. It was better than his fake apologies. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place on a rainy Tuesday. He was away on a business trip. I knew he was with Anya. Her Instagram story showed a hotel rooftop bar I recognized. I went into his study, opened the ledger, and found a series of large, regular payments to a shell company I traced back to a city councilman. It was a bribe, a big one. I had it all, the infidelity, the financial fraud, the corruption. I closed the ledger, my hands finally trembling. Not from fear, from anticipation. The beast was comfortable, well-fed, believing himself to be the king of his domain. He had no idea his hunter was already in the tree, rifle aimed, finger on the trigger. I picked up my phone and opened a new, anonymous email account. I attached the audio files, the photos of the ledger, the screenshots of his conversations with the other women. I typed in 3 email addresses, one for the IRS, one for the city's ethics board, and one for his most important, most conservative client. My finger hovered over the send button. I thought of the girl I used to be, the one who believed love was enough. I thought of Sophia and Chloe and Anya. I took a deep, cleansing breath. This was my final hit, my last and greatest high. I pressed send. Then I stood up, walked to my closet, and pulled out the suitcase I'd hidden weeks ago. It was time to pack. The show was over, and the finale was about to begin. 3 days later, I was gone. I left while he was at work. I took only what I needed: my clothes, my laptop, the small box of mementos from my life before him. I left the key on the kitchen counter. I didn't leave a note. My silence was the message. I rented a small, sunny apartment across town, paid for in cash from an account he knew nothing about. For the first week, I slept for 10 hours a night, the deep, dreamless sleep of the liberated. I woke up to silence, not to the sound of his criticism or the weight of his expectations. The peace was intoxicating. I watched the storm hit from a distance. It started with a phone call. I could imagine his face, smug and arrogant, as he answered. I saw the color drain from it in my mind's eye. The first email had landed. He called me over and over. My phone lit up with his name. I let it go to voicemail. The messages started calm, confused. "Hey, baby, where are you? The house is empty." Then they grew frantic. "My client just dropped me. What the hell is going on?" Then, paranoid. "Did you do something? Did you talk to someone?" I never answered. I saved every voicemail. They were a symphony of his unraveling. The real explosion came a week later. The IRS had frozen his assets. The ethics investigation was front-page news. His reputation, the thing he valued more than anything, was being publicly shredded. His messages turned to pure, unfiltered rage. "You psychotic bitch. I know this is you. I'll find you. I'll destroy you." He did try to find me. He showed up at my best friend's house, pounding on the door. He called my mother, screaming obscenities. But I had warned them. They were armed with restraining orders and a cold, protective fury. He was a beast trapped in a cage of his own making, and I had the key. But I wasn't letting him out. I was just watching him gnaw his own legs off. The final act was my personal favorite. I put on a simple black dress. I looked good, rested, healthy. The hollows in my cheeks were gone. The fear in my eyes had been replaced by a calm, steady light. I drove to the courthouse, where his preliminary hearing for the bribery charges was being held. I walked in and took a seat in the back. He was at the defendant's table, his shoulders slumped, his expensive suit hanging loosely on him. He looked broken, old. His lawyer was whispering to him, and he turned, scanning the room. His eyes passed over me, then snapped back. They widened in disbelief, then in raw, seething hatred. I held his gaze. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I just looked at him. I let him see my peace. I let him see that I was whole and he was in ruins. He stood up, his chair screeching against the floor. "You," he screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "This is all because of you, you crazy whore." The judge slammed his gavel. "Order, Mr. Sterling, control yourself. But Liam was beyond control. All his polished charm, his calculated cruelty, evaporated, leaving only the feral, cornered animal beneath. He was dragged out of the courtroom, still screaming my name, a curse on his lips. I stood up and walked out. The sun was warm on my face. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with clean, free air. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a text from a new number. Sophia. Thank you, it read. He told me you were unstable. He told me you were the problem. I saw the news. I'm so sorry. I'm free too now. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. I was no longer the girl addicted to her abusive lover. I was the woman who had cured herself. The withdrawal had been hell, but the sobriety was a power he could never touch. I got into my car and drove away, never looking back. The beast was put down, and the hunter was finally at peace. You see, putting down a beast like Liam isn't like putting down a rabid dog. A dog stays where it falls. A man like him, he gets back up, and he comes for you. The peace I felt driving away from that courthouse was real, but it was fragile. It was the calm before the counterstorm. I had humiliated him, destroyed his career, and exposed his true nature to the world. A man who built his life on control and power doesn't just accept that. He plots his revenge. The first sign was a dead rose on my new doorstep, my new address, which was supposed to be secret. Then my car tires were slashed in the middle of the night. The police wrote it off as random vandalism, but I knew. It was his signature, a message. I can still touch you. The fear started to creep back in, a cold, familiar poison in my veins. But this time, it was different. This time, it was mixed with a cold, hard rage. He thought he could pull me back into the cycle. He thought my new strength was just a phase. He was wrong. I didn't call the police again. I knew what they would say. I installed cameras myself, hidden ones. I started carrying a small, legal, but very sharp knife in my purse. I was done being his victim. If he wanted a war, he would get one. The emails started next, sent from anonymous accounts. I miss the smell of your fear. You look tired in your new apartment. You should get more sleep. He was watching me. The thought should have paralyzed me. Instead, it focused me. He had shown me his hand. His desperation made him sloppy. I began my own surveillance. I knew his routines, his habits. I knew he frequented a dingy bar on the east side when he was stressed, a place far beneath his former status. I sat in my car across the street, watching him stumble out night after night, a ghost of the powerful man he once was. I took pictures. I documented his decline. One night, he followed a woman from the bar, a young, pretty thing who reminded me of myself years ago. I saw the old pattern starting again. The predator was hunting for new prey. My blood ran cold, then hot. This wasn't just about me anymore. I couldn't let that happen. I waited until he was in a narrow, dimly lit alley, cornering her against a wall. I got out of my car and walked towards them, my footsteps silent on the wet pavement. "Losing your touch, Liam," I said, my voice cutting through the darkness. He spun around, his eyes wide with shock, then fury. The woman took her chance and fled. "You," he snarled, taking a step toward me. "You ruined everything. My life is ashes because of you." "No," I said calmly, my hand tight around the knife in my pocket. "You ruined it. I just held up a mirror." He lunged at me then, his face a mask of pure hatred. But he was drunk and slow, and I was ready. I sidestepped him easily. As he stumbled past, I didn't use the knife. I used my words, the weapon he had taught me to wield. "The FBI has the ledger now, Liam," I lied, my voice a cold whisper. "Not just the IRS. The payments to the councilman. They're tracing it to a bigger network. They think you're a small fish. They want the sharks you work for. They've offered me a deal, witness protection, a new life, and in exchange, I give them you." He froze, his back to me. I could see the panic seizing him. This was bigger than his reputation. This was prison. This was his powerful friends turning on him to save themselves. "You're bluffing," he whispered, but his voice trembled. "Am I?" I took a step closer. "Then why do you think I'm so calm? You're not hunting me, Liam. You're a dead man walking. And the men you're involved with, they don't like loose ends." I let the silence hang in the air, let the paranoia I'd planted take root in his mind. I was using his own tactics, the psychological warfare, the gaslighting, but I was better at it. I had learned from a master. He turned to look at me, and for the first time, I saw real, gut-wrenching fear in his eyes. Not anger, fear. The fear of a cornered beast who knows the hunter has a bigger gun. "Stay away from me," I said, my voice final. "Stay away from any other woman. Or the next time you see me, it won't be me you have to worry about. It will be the men in the shadows you sold your soul to." I turned and walked back to my car, my heart pounding not in fear, but in triumph. I didn't look back. I had beaten him, not just in the courtroom, not just in the court of public opinion. I had beaten him in the dark, in the alleyways of his own twisted world. I had taken his power, his control, and I had shattered it. I got in my car and drove away. This time, I knew it was truly over. The beast wasn't just put down, he was broken. And I was finally completely free. For 6 months, there was only silence. No dead roses. No slashed tires. No emails dripping with venom. The city felt lighter, the air easier to breathe. I started to live, not just survive. I took a new job, one that used my talent for noticing details, for reading people. I became a consultant for a security firm. The irony was not lost on me. I even went on a date. His name was Ben. He was a teacher. His hands were gentle and his eyes were kind. He didn't try to own me. He was safe. It was terrifying. One evening, I was walking home from dinner with Ben. He'd held my hand, and for the first time, it hadn't felt like a cage. I was almost at my apartment door, a small, genuine smile on my lips, when my phone buzzed. Not a call, an alert from one of my hidden cameras. My blood went cold. I opened the app. The camera feed showed my empty living room, but the motion sensor had been triggered. I rewound the footage, and there he was. Liam. He hadn't come to the door. He hadn't left a threat. He had picked the lock on my balcony door, a flaw in the building's security I'd stupidly overlooked. He stood in the center of my living room, gaunt and pale, his clothes hanging off him. He didn't touch anything. He didn't steal or break a thing. He just stood there for 5 full minutes, staring at a photograph on my bookshelf. It was a picture of me and Ben, taken just a week ago, laughing at a street fair. He stared at it with a look of such profound, possessive hunger that it stole the air from my lungs. It wasn't the rage of a man who wanted revenge. It was the cold, patient obsession of a collector who had decided a piece that had gotten away still belonged to him. Then he turned and left the same way he came. The message was clear. The legal battles, the financial ruin, the threats, that was the old war. This was something new. He wasn't trying to destroy my life anymore. He was asserting that my life, my happiness, my new love, it was all still his property. He was reminding me that in his mind, I would always be his. The old fear tried to rise, a ghost from the past. But it was met by something stronger, something forged in fire. I didn't call the police. I didn't panic. I looked at the photo of Ben and me. I looked at my new life, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that I could never be safe, and Ben could never be safe, as long as Liam was breathing. I had tried to break him. I had tried to make him afraid, but I had only made him more obsessed. There was only one way this ended. I opened a new, encrypted file on my computer. The heading was simple: Project Endgame. I was done playing defense. I was done being the hunter waiting in the tree. It was time to burn the whole forest down. Project Endgame wasn't about revenge anymore. Revenge was a luxury for people who could afford to look back. This was about survival, pure, simple, and absolute. I knew the legal system had failed. Restraining orders were just paper. The police needed proof of an overt act. Liam was too smart for that now. His break-in was a masterpiece of psychological terror, designed to have no legal consequence, but maximum emotional impact. He was right, it did, but he was wrong about the emotion it provoked. It wasn't fear. It was a final, chilling resolve. My plan had to be perfect. It had to be untraceable. And it had to use the one weapon he would never expect: his own twisted perception of me. I began phase 1, the bait. I started subtly altering my digital footprint. I let leaks happen. A fake insecure journal app on a tablet I accidentally left at a cafe. Entries about my anxiety, my paranoia that Ben would leave me if he knew the full extent of my instability. I wrote about my sleeping pills, how I sometimes took too many just to escape the nightmares. It was a performance, a character crafted for his eyes only. I was painting a picture of the weak, fragile victim he believed was my true core. I knew he was watching. He couldn't help himself. Phase 2, the trap. I planned a weekend getaway with Ben. A secluded cabin by a lake. I made sure the location was easy to find. I even confided in a mutual acquaintance, knowing the information would get back to Liam. I was setting the stage. The night before we left, I went to see Liam. I didn't sneak. I walked right up to the door of his shabby new apartment and knocked. When he opened it, the shock on his face was almost comical. He looked older, the lines on his face etched deeper by bitterness. I let my hands shake. I made my voice tremble. I can't do this anymore, Liam. The fighting, the fear. I wrapped my arms around myself, the picture of desperation. I'm coming apart. I need it to stop. His eyes lit up with a vile, triumphant glow. He saw the broken bird returning to the cage. He reached out to touch my face, and I forced myself not to flinch. "SHHH," he whispered, his voice dripping with false comfort. "I knew you'd come back. You'll always come back to me." "I'm going away with Ben," I sobbed, laying the hook. "But I don't want to. I'm so scared. I just want the noise in my head to stop." I looked up at him, letting tears well in my eyes. "I still have the pills, the strong ones from before." I was handing him the blueprint for my own murder. A suicidal, unstable ex-girlfriend overdosing at a remote cabin. The perfect crime. He would be miles away with an alibi, and he would have one. He smiled, a slow, cruel smile. "Everything will be quiet soon, my love. I promise." I left my performance complete. The bait was taken. The trap was set. Now for phase 3, the hunt. He thought he was the hunter. He had no idea he was walking directly into my crosshairs. The cabin was perfect. Isolated, surrounded by tall pines that whispered in the wind, with a long, winding driveway that announced any visitor long before they arrived. I had chosen it carefully. Ben was nervous. He could feel the tension coiled tight within me, a spring about to snap. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked, his kind eyes full of concern. "We can go back to the city." "I've never been more sure," I said, and it was the truth. I kissed him, a real kiss, trying to pour all the warmth I still possessed into it. It was a goodbye and a thank you. I just need to face my ghosts. I spent the evening setting the stage inside. I placed the bottle of sleeping pills, carefully replaced with sugar pills, on the nightstand. I scattered my clothes. I created a scene of despair. When night fell, I sent Ben away. I told him a lie, that my sister was having a crisis and needed me, and that he should go back to the city, and I would meet him tomorrow. I saw the confusion and hurt in his eyes, and it broke a piece of my heart. It was the price of keeping him safe. "You need to trust me," I whispered, my forehead against his. "Please, just for 24 hours. He left reluctantly. The cabin was silent now, save for the crackling fire. I waited. I didn't have to wait long. Just after midnight, I saw the sweep of headlights through the trees, moving slowly, without engine noise. An electric car. He was learning. He parked out of sight, down the road. My heart was a calm, steady drum. This was it. I took 2 of the sugar pills, with a glass of water, in full view of the window. I lay down on the bed, forcing my breathing to become deep and slow. I closed my eyes, leaving only a sliver of sight. Minutes ticked by. Then, the softest click of the front door opening. He had picked the lock, just as he had at my apartment. His footsteps were quiet on the wooden floor. I could feel his presence in the doorway, watching me. I could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn the night he first took me against the window. The scent of my old addiction. He moved closer. I could hear his breathing, shallow and excited. He believed he had won. He thought I was helpless, drugged, his to do with as he pleased. His shadow fell over me. "This is how it was always meant to be," he whispered, his voice thick with triumph. "You belong to me, in life or in death." I felt his hand, cold and possessive, brush the hair from my forehead. And that's when I moved. My eyes snapped open. There was no drowsiness, no fear, only cold, clear purpose. His own eyes widened in stunned shock. He froze for a fatal second. "It's over, Liam," I said, my voice steady as stone. My hand, which had been resting under the pillow, was now holding the voice-activated recorder. Its red light was glowing. "They heard everything. The police are on their way." The panic that twisted his features was more satisfying than any touch had ever been. The beast was finally, truly cornered. With a guttural roar of rage, he lunged at me. But I was ready. I was always ready.